Hey, what's up, people? So, you know something? Checking out Twitter, and I come across this post, WW2, the Eastern something. And they say U.S. soldiers set fire to a random family home in Vietnam. You know something? I find it very strange how, whenever these wars start, there never seems to be an attainable goal that leads to peace. It seems to always be perpetual instability. Like the goal is not to even make any kind of allyship with these people. It's to, humiliate, degrade, engage in, you know, humiliation rituals. Yeah, you showed them. And one thing I've seen, because I'm trying to get, my head wrapped around the madness that is normal to these people. Because um, it seems to always be when it comes to the world, you have the big powers like China, Russia, and the United States, making their moves. You might say India, basically any country that you just can't easily attack and run through and steal resources from. There seems to always be instability with nations that are not superpowers. And I would always chalk that up to, well, it's a bunch of infighting. These people are fighting over religious issues. Not to say that can't be the case, but you begin to realize that these people who are sitting around there fighting religious wars, they're not praying for bullets to come down. They're not praying for guns. They're not praying for tanks. Somebody's supplying this stuff. Bombs aren't just appearing out of thin air. And then that makes you wonder, okay, who's giving these people these weapons? Where are these weapons coming from? And you always seem to see this back and forth when it comes to Russia's interests, the U.S. interests, China's interests. Not one single one of these people or nations seems to have a solid plan that will lead to peace. It seems to always be a situation to where people who don't have as much have to choose between the lesser of two evils. And that's just pathetic. It really is, Because I do understand the whole world of geopolitics. Look, let's be perfectly clear, man. This stuff is about resources. It's always been, and it always will be. But it doesn't mean that this has to be the norm. You don't have to go through people's countries on this steal, kill, and destroy type fervor. You don't have to send, guys out like toy soldiers to go destabilize and capture the region just so that you can acquire, resources for your own nation. That seems to be the blueprint here. It seems to be commonplace. Unacceptable. You can't tell me that you can't form any kind of government with people to where you don't have to sit up there and kill off the general population so that you can, have free trade among these people. Because a lot of people, truth be told, if you would come to people with a plan to where, their lives would improve also, a lot of people would be on board, because people at the end of the day just want to be happy. They want to be stable. They want to have their own, life. What's that? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. People want to feel fulfilled. And this is far from it. This kind of behavior, whether done by United States or the Russians, this whole tug of war between superpowers, and then this whole chronic destabilization with other nations who don't have as much influence. This stuff has to come to an end, man. This is very primitive behavior to sit around here and engage in just perpetual warfare that does not end. I would think that somebody at the top would be like, okay, enough is enough. We're doing things different. If anything, for the sake of just stability, because at this point, the larger powers are getting thrown out. They're getting driven out because people are beginning to say, hey, man, they're beginning to see, there's no point in having any kind of relationship with these countries, and they just keep stealing. Was not that the case when it came to France and Burkina Faso? How long do you think people are going to tolerate this stuff in a modern world? It's better to cash out and leave this kind of stuff in the past and punish those who are guilty, because you can't have this stuff be a thing. And I don't know one decent person who would want this stuff to continue. But that's all I'm going to say when it comes to this.